What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. So I came across one of the most intriguing potential trade scenarios out there, and it had some merit to it, right? In the grand scheme of things, some strong points were made. It's involving many of our favorite players, favorite player on the defense, in Sauce Gardner. And trust me, if it wasn't at least worth bringing up and kind of reviewing both sides of the equation here, I would have just bypassed it and went on to whatever is interesting me next. But it's definitely worth the conversation. So let's go ahead and dive into it. Sauce Gardner. We have a young elite 22-year-old cornerback. You take a look at what he's been able to accomplish in the league so far, and the success that he's seen, really rivals any cornerback to come into the league, in the last 50 years. He has a tremendous amount of respect from the offensive coordinators and quarterbacks already, pretty much garnering one of the lowest, target rates in the NFL over his 2 years that haven't even been fully completed yet, right? So you're talking about accolades, you're talking about stats, you're talking about passing the film study. PFF ranked him number one last year. As of 2 days ago, by the time you guys are seeing this, I seen them I seen they ranked him as number one once again, but even in most other more objective and reliable statistical measurements and such, he's still a top 6 cornerback at worst, and that's with maybe a small drop off. Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro last year. He even finished 8th in the Defensive Player of the Year rankings, and I'd make a strong argument that if he was able to go out there and secure some more picks, you're talking about a guy that probably would have won it all. Defensive Player of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, the first team All-Pro, the Pro Bowl, the whole gambit, right? Now, why are we talking about potentially trading him? The point that the article made, which stood out to me, was that the goal isn't to necessarily achieve the best unit in the NFL, right? You talk about like a running back room, a wide receiver room, defensive line, etc., etc. It's not to obtain the best position group. It's not to obtain the best, offensive or defensive team that you can. It is to assemble the best team overall, which means that you generally have superstars spread all throughout the roster and at the important positions like quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, defensive line, cornerback, right? Throw the ball, stop the ball. Those are generally the premium positions that we're looking at, and anything that generally has a direct impact on helping those out, of course. Right now, we have an embarrassment of riches on the defensive side, right? You take a look at that defensive line unit. Everybody from even Carl Lawson, who's been a healthy scratch for a long time this season, he had a lot of trade interest, right? And we wanted to play the better safe than sorry approach, at least while our playoff chances were looking much better before. But it doesn't just stop there, right? The linebacker room I wouldn't want to touch, but the cornerback room, you can make an argument for probably trading somebody there. After watching guys like Bryce Hall step up, he himself has raised his own draft capital, trade capital, I should say. And so, if you're going to make a trade, right, and try to bring in a crazy haul, it's most likely going to happen on the defensive side, right? Which also brings up the whole conversation of, do the New York Jets have anybody that's necessarily untouchable? And it's something I've been shying away from in recent years because the league has proven to us over and over and over again that nobody is untouchable, right? You're seeing the Aaron Rodgers of the world get traded, and obviously it's a bit of a different conversation. The context of aging veterans and all that kind of stuff gets thrown in the mix, but we've seen young elite players at their positions go. We've seen Hall of Famers still in somewhat at the prime of their careers go, and everything in between. Sauce Gardner, to me, not only is one of the top 3 worst case scenario top 5 players at his position, but between his backstory, what he shows us, to the public, and what he does with the team, he kind of has that face of his position face of the franchise, face of the NFL type quality to him, right? Which is something you would love to hold on to if you're the New York Jets. But the premise here is that in a trade, he could give one of the craziest returns that we've ever seen for a player, especially at his position, right? The qualifier here is that the offense has been so terrible for us. We have minimal resources to go around, right? You take a look at team needs, and for me, I would say that, immediately wide receiver 2, a running back 2, a left tackle, a right tackle, a backup guard, are the immediate needs, and that's just on the offensive side of the ball, right? Let alone having to replenish some players that are going to go on the defensive side of the ball, and that's not even the full list on offense, but probably the major items that you'll see most of us talk about. And we have very minimal resources to do it, right? Cap space isn't as flush as it's been in years past. You take a look at our draft resources. We have the first rounder, the third. I believe it's 2 fourths, a fifth, and then I believe maybe 2 sixth rounders. But overall, it's not like you have, multiple first or, multiple seconds and a third like we've kind of seen in the last couple of years for the New York Jets. So this time you really are going to have to try to hit on everything and execute the perfect offseason plan. Trading a guy like Sauce Gardner could potentially help mitigate some of those issues. And it's crazy for me even right now to kind of process thinking about it, but there is some merit to it. As I mentioned, right? You think about the strength of this team, and this is as a whole, it's our pass rush. You take a look at what we've been able to accomplish with developing Jermaine Johnson, seeing Bryce Huff, obviously Quentin Williams in the front. We've seen Quentin Jefferson have career years. Al Woods himself was looking great. So, we've acquired various assets there, and we've seen essentially everybody perform. Even Solomon Thomas, right? He's not getting recognized a lot, but he's looked his best in a New York Jets uniform so far. You can also say the secondary, right? And this includes Sauce Gardner being here right now. We have the best trio of cornerbacks in the NFL, and I'd argue that with anybody, which would mean if you trade Sauce Gardner, you're still talking about having at their position groups, right, a boundary cornerback and a slot cornerback, you have one of the top 5 to 7-ish cornerbacks, again, for the boundary and slot in the NFL still. Obviously, you have a huge gaping hole over there now if you trade Sauce Gardner. But if you can think about the return on investment here, you would be trading Sauce Gardner at essentially what you can call probably, his peak trade value, right? Again, only 22 years old. You've seen all of the accolades. He's recognized pretty much unanimously across the NFL as one of the undisputed top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL. You're still getting him on a rookie contract, and you don't expect any kind of fall off. And he's been healthy and available for the team, minus a concussion issue, which seemed very minor, taking a look at things. So what would you expect, right? It's kind of hard to put things in perspective, but you take a look at some of the recent huge trades that involved, players in the secondary. Jamal Adams, we're super familiar with that, right? We had 2 first rounders for him, a 3rd round pick, and we got a player that was pretty solid as his position in Bradley McDougald, back for Jamal Adams. Jalen Ramsey, he's been traded twice. He returned a 1st round pick and a 4th, and then we've seen him go for a 3rd round and a player when he went to the Dolphins. And you got to remember the context, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars were pretty much having a fire sale. Everybody knew it. Teams were able to take advantage of it. And then with the Dolphins still, Jalen Ramsey as an older player, still looking like a quality guy. He goes out there and gets the team, a solid depth piece, and then a 3rd rounder still, right? And then Revis, from way back in the day, who went for a 1st and a 4th. And it's ironic that most of these big trades have involved the New York Jets. So history kind of sides with us that if things got crazy, this is in the realm of possibility. But I think you can honestly see something pretty close to what we got for Jamal Adams, especially if a team is desperate, right? This is as close to a no-risk trade for a franchise as you can get, right? And keep in mind, a lot of us have our own concerns about Sauce Gardner's usage, right? He would look probably completely different if you allowed him to play man coverage, which is what he's known for a lot more than what the New York Jets do, right? He looks great being able to split between zone and off press, off ball, press coverage, all of these different things, right? But in a system where maybe somebody tries to treat him like Rex Ryan did or Revis, you can imagine him taking his heights, even higher, right? So there's still an even bigger upside for a team that can go out and get a guy like Sauce Gardner here. Now, personally, would I do it? No. I think there's a list of players that you would need to look at before you even look at a guy like Sauce Gardner, and you'd have to absolutely be blown away. I mean, I'm talking, in my opinion, you would have to have a trade that would rewrite history. And I don't know if you would necessarily get that from a team, especially for a player at the position of cornerback. It is a premium position, no doubt, but you're talking about potentially having to offer him in 2 years a contract that may rival some of the mid-tier quarterbacks that are getting extensions. Probably one of the highest, I'm pretty sure he'll reset the market at the cornerback position no matter who's giving him a contract. And that's always something that's, fought against pretty severely. But nonetheless, it is an extremely entertaining idea to kind of think about to a certain degree. The Jets could use those resources tremendously right now, right? If you think about what the top of this draft class is potentially set up to look like and who you would potentially want to trade to, you're going to want to get somebody that's going to be in the top 10, top 15, maybe worst case scenario. And then you open up an entire different avenue, especially depending on what your return is, right? Are you getting multiple top picks in the same draft class? Are you spreading that out? Are you getting, the golden apple and you're getting top draft picks in multiple draft classes? Just imagine having top 10 in this one, for instance. Now the conversation doesn't become, do you want to draft a Joe Alt or a Malik Neighbors? It is, maybe we can draft both of them, or maybe we can actually get a Joe Alt. Maybe we can trade back. Maybe we can pick a Joe Alt, keep whatever the new pick we acquire is, and maybe we can seriously consider a quarterback that we can pair up and now not only develop with this suddenly rapidly improving offense, but you have that bridge situation between them and Aaron Rodgers to help accelerate the developmental curve. I'd be excited for it. Nonetheless, again, in my opinion, it's not a move I would make unless the New York Jets will absolutely be winning a historical trade. But I was curious. Let me know what you guys think. Is this a situation you would entertain at all? Is this blasphemy? And kind of what would you do with the Hall of Picks back? And I'll catch you guys again. Peace.